Back when I started recording my Instagram videos, I was fat, I was poor, bad haircut, right, babe? Disaster. I was making no money. I had just started my business. I had like an iPhone 7 screen shattered. But I said, you know what? The content is going to suck. That's a given. But 2 years from now, once I have a bunch of followers, once I have all this money, my business is flourishing, my haircut will be better, I'll have a nice watch. No one's going to be questioning the content that I made in the beginning, right? And my point is rather than letting some disadvantages stop me, I said, you know what? Let me just get started and I'll kind of figure this thing out as I go along. So for a long time, I've kind of been having like that version of excuses for YouTube. I have been wanting to make YouTube videos, but I'm not so good with video editing. I don't really have, I would imagine, the correct equipment. I think I'm a lot better with short form content than I am with long form content, but I kind of just decided, let me stop being lazy. Lazy is the most jester trait ever. So I said, you know what, let me just jump in. Let me just start making some content. If I work hard enough, this thing will figure itself out. So is there any better place to start, Camilla? Is there any better place to start than just a quick market update? So markets are not doing well right now. The small cap focused Russell 2000 just became today the first US benchmark to enter into a correction territory. If you're not so familiar, this means that it is 10% off of its recent high, which is not good. Not good. Oh, sorry, I was just reading something and I thought it was discrediting my definition of correction, but I'm correct. Let's all calm down, okay? So the major large cap indexes like Dow Jones, Nasdaq, S&P, they're hovering around near correction territory, but they did not close today in a correction territory. So first of all, I just wanted to give the update, and now I would like to cover what I would consider the three main reasons of why the stock market is in the dumpster. So first of all, and pretty obviously, the war in Iran is not looking good, but actually, it's not a war, and we've already won the war, but the NATO should come in to help us open the Strait of Hormuz, but we've already won. So, kind of kidding, kind of not, but the important part here to understand is that this thing is continuing to escalate. So, we got an update today that, I'll just read the Axios. Fake news, I'll read the headline. Trump mulls risky Karg Island takeover to force Iran to open Strait of Hormuz, okay? The key points that we need to understand here is that Karg Island is an island that processes 90% of Iran's crude oil exports. Crude oil exports is, the lifeblood of Iran's economy. So the idea here is that the Strait of Hormuz, which is responsible for 20% of the oil globally, is currently shut down. This is shut down by a strategy that Iran is taking on. Iran's military, it would be a little bit tough for them to just directly take on the U.S. military. So the approach that they've taken is, let's make America and Israel's lives difficult economically. Let's attack American allies to put pressure on them from that perspective. And let's create as much chaos as we can there instead of just straight up trying to attack the military. And, I would argue that this has been pretty effective because it's causing a lot of political pain. But to kind of get to the relevant points here, we've seen the price of oil rise. We've seen a lot of markets globally, a lot of Asian markets getting smashed. This is not great news for Trump politically. And I would say, as far as the war is concerned, not great news for him either, okay? So his strategy is they've already bombed Karg Island, and now we got a report that he is planning to potentially, legit send in ground troops to invade and take it over, which he could then use as pressure and leverage to force Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz. Now, is this a good plan? I'm no geopolitical expert, nor do I want to get too political on here. But what I can tell you is that investors don't seem to be loving these sorts of escalations. And the market went down today, I believe, largely as a result of this news. Now, the second thing that's not so great from a macroeconomics perspective with the market is inflation. Probably America's least favorite word for the last decade. Inflation's way up, okay? Take a look here. Wholesale prices rose 0.7% in February, much more than expected, and up 3.4% annually, okay? Inflation is not only a big deal because things are just getting more expensive, and they're already extremely expensive, but it's increasing, right? And it is also lowering the chance that the Federal Reserve is going to be able to lower interest rates. If inflation is too hot and we lower interest rates, it is very likely that inflation will explode and run away and become uncontrollable, okay? And so now, on the note of the Federal Reserve, we're going to transition into reason 3 on why the stock market, I believe, is not doing well. The jobs market, I think the technical term would be, is in the absolute dumpster, okay? Jerome Powell from the Fed recently came out, I think on Wednesday, and he said, listen, if we take a look at the last 6 months and we consider the revisions of the jobs reports, job growth over this time period has been flat. We have not added any jobs to the U.S. economy over the last 6 months. He said this is the first time in American history that this has happened for this chunk of time. Okay? So the jobs are trash, which would encourage the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates. But inflation is high and increasing, which kind of handcuffs them and does not allow them to lower interest rates. So this is like the red flag that a lot of people call stagflation, where we have stagnant growth in a lot of areas and we have inflation. It's just the worst of both worlds. And like I said, these are both bad things individually, but where it really comes to a point is that they handcuff the Federal Reserve, woke Jerome, too late Jerome, I call him, and it doesn't allow them to lower interest rates because then the inflation would really explode. So these 3 things, I would argue, are the 3 main reasons that we are seeing the markets in correction territory. Now, this is how I'm going to do my Patreon moving forward. I think I'm just going to do my YouTube video, ignore my voice crack, regular like I did here. And then I think the last section of each video will be on Patreon. So if you'd like to see the last few minutes of the video, check out my Patreon and you'll see the full video. Bye-bye.